The Galactic Tribunal's warship Judgment's Edge hung in Earth's orbit like a metallic vulture, its chrome hull reflecting the blue marble below. Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony stood before the holographic display, his forearms crossed in practiced authority, as he transmitted the final ultimatum to the human leadership. Your species has been found guilty of harboring dangerous criminals. His synthesized voice echoed through the communication array. You will surrender all incarcerated individuals to the tribunal for proper justice. You have 6 standard hours to comply. On the surface below, President Sarah Chen sat in the emergency council chambers, surrounded by advisors whose faces ranged from bewildered to amused. The alien demand had caught everyone off guard, not because it was unreasonable by galactic standards, but because it was utterly impossible to fulfill. "Ma'am," whispered her chief of staff. "Should we tell them?" Chen suppressed a smile. "No. Let them come down and see for themselves." 6 hours later, Zethkar's shuttle touched down at the maximum security facility outside Denver. He had brought a full complement of tribunal guards, towering, armored beings from a dozen different worlds, each equipped with neural restraints and stasis pods capable of containing the most violent criminals in the galaxy. The human warden, a weathered woman named Captain Rodriguez, met them at the entrance. Her casual demeanor struck Zethkar as inappropriate given the gravity of the situation. "Welcome to Colorado State Penitentiary," she said, gesturing toward the imposing concrete structure. "Though I should warn you, you might be disappointed." Zethkar's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Human, your planet's reputation for harboring the violent and unreformed is well known. Your prisons are said to be overflowing with those who would terrorize civilized worlds. We are here to collect them." "Right," Rodriguez nodded, producing a tablet. "Let me show you to our maximum security wing first." They walked through corridors that should have been filled with the sounds of the desperate and dangerous. Instead, there was an odd quiet, broken only by the sound of machinery and distant voices engaged in what sounded suspiciously like learning. The first cell block they entered was completely empty. Not just of prisoners, the cells themselves had been converted. What once held solitary confinement now housed computer terminals, books, and artwork. "Where are your prisoners?" Zethkar demanded. "Well," Rodriguez said thoughtfully, "that's the thing. See, about 15 years ago we had this crazy idea. Instead of just locking people up and throwing away the key, we started actually trying to help them." She led them to what had once been the most dangerous wing of the prison. Now it was a workshop where former inmates learned trades: welding, programming, carpentry. A man with graying temples looked up from a 3D printer, smiled, and waved at the alien delegation. "That's Marcus," Rodriguez explained. "Used to be in here for armed robbery. Now he runs a non-profit that builds prosthetics for veterans." Zethkar's 4 eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Criminal tendencies are genetic. Rehabilitation is a myth, is it?" Rodriguez asked, leading them deeper into the facility. "See, we humans have this weird belief that people can change. Most of our criminals were just people who'd been dealt a bad hand: poverty, addiction, mental illness, desperation. So we treated the causes, not just the symptoms." They passed through what had been death row, now converted into a counseling center, where former inmates helped current ones work through trauma and addiction. The library had expanded into 3 separate buildings. The yard had become a community garden that fed half the surrounding neighborhoods. "But surely," insisted Sub-Commander Vlax, a reptilian being from Kepler 442b, "you must have some truly irredeemable specimens. The ones who kill for pleasure, who destroy for its own sake?" Rodriguez nodded grimly. "We did have those. 17 of them, to be exact. But here's the thing about humans, we never stopped trying. Even with the worst cases, we brought in the best psychologists, the most innovative treatments. We gave them decades to work with these people." She stopped before a memorial wall covered in photographs and handwritten letters. "Some we couldn't save," she admitted quietly. 3 took their own lives rather than face what they'd done. But the others? Well, they're out there now, working with victims' families, studying psychology, helping us understand how to prevent the kind of pain they once caused. Zethkar stared at the wall, his certainty wavering. "Your records show millions of incarcerated individuals. Where are they?" "Living their lives," Rodriguez said simply. "Working jobs, raising families, contributing to society. Turns out, when you treat people like people instead of animals, most of them rise to meet your expectations. The alien delegation spent another 4 hours touring the facility, finding only empty cells converted to classrooms, workshops, and healing spaces. What had once been one of Earth's most notorious prisons was now a rehabilitation center that other worlds sent delegations to study. As they returned to their shuttle, Zethkar found himself deeply unsettled. The hegemony's entire justice system was built on the premise that criminals were irredeemable, that the only solution was eternal imprisonment or elimination. But here was an entire species that had simply stopped believing that. "Commander," Vlax whispered, "what do we report to the tribunal?" Zethkar looked back at the facility, where former inmates were now teaching classes to at-risk youth from the community. He thought of the overcrowded prison ships in orbit around hegemony worlds, filled with beings who might, just might, be capable of change if given the chance. "We report," he said slowly, "that Earth's prisons are indeed empty. And perhaps we need to ask ourselves why ours are not." As the Judgment's Edge departed Earth's orbit, it carried with it not prisoners, but something far more dangerous to the galactic status quo, the revolutionary idea that redemption was possible for anyone willing to reach for it. Behind them, Earth continued its quiet revolution, one reformed life at a time.